What is good, fellow art people? Today, we're back at it. This is Zentangle 18. We got some really interesting patterns. These things are really cool. I'm super excited to show them to you. We got a centerpiece and some nice fill-ins. So let's get into it. As always, to get started, you're going to need a pencil right here. Nice pencil, right? You're going to need a marker and or a pen, all right? And guys, let's get into it. Super excited. All right. So our patterns today are Genesis, Cadent, and the Huggins pattern. All right. As always, we're going to get into a new page in our journal. We're going to make sure that we are starting by drawing 4 points on our page, right? And notice this is a good size here to work in. Now, once we have that, we're going to pretend like we're laying a piece of string down over top of it, okay? And this is going to allow us to kind of create this like flowing edge, right? And this kind of gives us a nice outside line, all right? Now, from there, we're going to kind of take that string where it ended, where we last left it, and we're going to kind of let it flow into our drawing, right, into our little square. And this is going to be a great base for our new patterns today. All right, definitely I'm going to need a nice circular space. You know, just letting you know. All right, I'm going to set my journal aside, and let's get these cards out. All right. All right. So the first pattern we have today is called Genesis. And Genesis is a pretty interesting one because it's kind of a more of an accent piece. Um, it's a large circle, but when you're done, you kind of use these lines to fill in an area. So for the purposes of this, let's just say that we're putting it in a random space, right? So I've kind of got this teardrop shape. This teardrop shape kind of shows up a lot in a lot of my cards where I'm, crossing lines over and stuff, and I end up with these kind of odd teardrop shapes. Okay. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to start by placing a circle in this space, and I can do this with a circle drawer if I want, but I'm just going to kind of go in and I'm going to roughly draw in a circle. Right, now I'm doing this with my pencil first, of course, because I know I'm going to mess it up. Kind of looks like a planchette a little bit. Or like a Google Dot. Like, hey, I'm here. Okay, so I got a nice little circle. All right, I'm going to find the center of my circle. I'm going to make a little point there. All right, and then I'm going to draw this kind of plus sign and a time sign to make this line here. Okay. So kind of like cutting a pizza, so everybody's got equal parts. All right. From here, I'm gonna make this little like bird. It's the shape is like this, but I kind of go in and then back out. So it's like this. So this little point becomes like a halfway. It like divides this in half, kind of, if that makes sense. So from the top, come down to the middle of that pie shape, and then I come back out to the edge of my circle here. Okay, and I'm gonna do this by turning my book or my card because I find it more comfortable to do that. So halfway in, up to the point. 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 Whoa, got some deja vu. Hold up now. Whoa, okay, weird. All right. Um, what I'm gonna do now is where this little kind of nook is, where these two things meet. I'm gonna use this to draw a line to the center, like that. So it kind of divides our 8 pieces into 16 pieces, but that's okay. I hope my math's right, but I think that's right. Yeah. All right. So before I go any further, I'm going to go and hit this with a pen or a marker because the next part involves a little bit of shading, okay? So I've got my lines going out. Do my big lines first. Boom, boom. Oh, messed up one there. All right, so then I'm going to go in and, oh, I did my little lines first. All right, cool. I'll do my big lines as well. Turned around a little bit there. Deja vu does that to me a little bit. All right, and then I'm going to make this little shape here. It's like a little seagull at sunset. It's pretty cool. This makes like a nice like floral pattern, just like repeating that shape, almost like a mandala. That's exactly what it reminds me of. Mandala. All right. All right. From here, you may want to erase a little bit, although I don't necessarily advise exactly erasing right after hitting it with a marker. You may smear your marker a bit, but if you're cautious, you'll be okay. All right. Now, this puts us about here-ish in our drawing. And you may see that I have these lines that kind of like radiate from this point. And the first line here that I drew is kind of this outline around this guy. So I'm going to draw this edge here. I know I drew it first over here, but after you do this, after I did this, I was like, you know what? I think it's a good idea to just do that in pencil and then draw it in with a pen. That way, if you cross over that line, you can fix it here on the fly. And you may notice my line's also not perfect. That's because of what we're going to be doing with that line. We're going to be like kind of like filling in these little negative spaces with like really like quick lines. It's there to create texture more than anything, is how it feels. So like I don't want to call them like circles per se, but they definitely are. And to do this, I'm just going to kind of quickly kind of like do these like curved lines that just come radiating out. So I'm not necessarily worried about them being perfect as long as they are contouring away from the shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let these lines fill the space in my card. You may notice I'm doing a lot of turning, right? That's because this is kind of a radial pattern. It's like a hurricane coming through here. Now, if you just have a circular area that this kind of circle can fit into, this gets a little less complicated. So I'll show you, right? So now I've kind of filled the outside of this. I just have this awkward shape here to deal with. I definitely can fill this in as well using the same kind of lines, right, that kind of radiate outward from the center. So this can be a very versatile kind of pattern. I know a student in particular who will probably kind of dig this. I'm just going to kind of let it get smaller, 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 smaller. Cool. Yeah, there we go. Right. So I use these lines to just kind of radiate outwards, so it almost like there's like a nice spiral. You know, we're just catching this little part of it. All right. Now from there, we are going to fill in this, but I want to do something a little different than what I did in my card. Instead of filling it in solid, I'm going to do it with shading. So I'm going to take, I can pick a side, left or right. I'm going to pick right. And I'm just going to kind of shade in the right one. So this one's on the right side. This one's on the right side. Right. This one's on the right side. Right side. All the way around. And what this is going to do is, this is going to show that this is not a perfectly flat shape. That, you know, there's a side of this that's like more facing towards the light, and there's a side of this that's more in the shadows. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is also shading. I know I'm using a marker, but we'll definitely be using a pencil for this part. Just kind of having a little shadow closer to the center point. Alright, and there we go. There we go. Sorry, my camera went out of focus a little bit there. Alright, so now I'm going to kind of clean up and erase. Nice, nice, nice. Looking good. Alright, and there we go. There's the first pattern for day 18. Pretty cool. You know, I can think of a few little spots that I think this would fit in over here. Definitely, like I said, a nice circle area, but, you know, I could put this over here. It really doesn't matter. Alright, now, on to the next pattern. So, the crazy thing here is, like, this one is, like, kind of the most sane of the days. Because our next one is called the Cadent, or the Cadent. And this one, it looks super complicated. It's really not. But what we're going to do is we're going to start by kind of creating a grid to work in. And I don't need to be like super careful about this because this pattern will work as long as you follow the steps, okay? So when I put my circles, or when I make my grid, I'm going to make it by creating these little circles, right? I don't want to have them solid. I want them to be open, all right? So let's just say here, here, and for every 4 that make a square, you'll be able to have one of these squares. Boom, boom. All right, and you can make this more blown up, smaller in. It's really up to you. I'm gonna do. I don't want to do too many. I should have drawn a shape and filled this in, but I think this is okay. It gets the point across, right? Dude, this could be any shape here, right? And then you can just use these to, oops, a little too big, it's okay. That one runs off, runs off, runs off, runs off, runs off, runs off. All right, so yeah, so like there's my shape, if you will. All right, now, the way this works is we have this shape. It's like this S, right? There's a circle here and a circle here, all right? And what we're doing is we're just pulling this line down like that. That's the whole thing. Every one of these is that, and every one of these is that. It's this thing just repeated over and over and over again. So I have my circles, so you have to imagine this is zoomed in a bit, okay? And then I have a line going off of one side and touching onto the other side, just like that. That's the whole pattern. All right, so if I look here, I go off of this side onto that side, off of this side onto that side, off of this side onto that side. And it's okay if it skews a little, because in the end it'll look correct. You may notice I stopped down here. It's because I'm going to have to figure out where those dots would have been. And this is where things can get a little complicated if you're working in a shape like this. But I'm just going to show you how it works. Come in with a pencil. I'm just going to draw those lines in really quickly. One there, one there, one there, I guess one here. So yeah, I'm just adding I'm just adding a little pencil like circle, and I will definitely erase these when I'm done. All right, so I know this is here, so I'll just stop there. Same. Stopping where that line is, stopping where that line is, stopping where that line is. Same thing here. That would go this way. Stopping where that line is. Right, so I just kind of use that concept as a way to figure out where those go. So if you're trying to fill a shape with this, you can just make little dots around the edge, and that'll help you keep things in a grid. Keep it like all nice and squared away. All right. Now, that's this first part. I do all my straight up and downs, and then the magic trick here, again, this pattern right here, 2 circles off of this side to that side. The way I'm going to finish this is I'm going to turn my card sideways, and I'm going to do the same pattern, the exact same pattern. If you look here on this example, off of this side onto this side, off of this side onto this side, and I'm just going to, so kind of like where each of these circles are, right here you may see, it's got 4 lines, so they're all kind of like swirling around it a bit. This pattern's so cool. I looked at this in the book and I was like, nah, not gonna happen. Boom, boom. Not gonna see that one. Not gonna see. That's fine. And there it is. Pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool. I dig it. All right. When it comes to shading this, it already has like this really cool texture to it. I just kind of like picked a side and said like, hey, this side is a little lower. Maybe it's the side that's kind of tucked in behind. And I just kind of went in really lightly with a pencil, shaded. So each individual piece here has its own like nice texture to it. So let me do this quickly. This marker is on something. Like works one time. Ah, I forgot a spot. See that right there? I goofed. No problem. It's fixed. And if you need to draw this on your paper somewhere to kind of keep yourself in check, it's definitely okay. Right, just a little bit. Like I said, it just adds a little something to it. Again, making them look a little more three-dimensional. Come back in this corner and just darken it just a smidge. Now, personally, when I work in my book, I've been using purple, just because I really enjoy drawing with highlighters, as odd as that may sound. But I'm really digging on this gray marker thing. Having a lot of fun with it. I'm not gonna lie. All right. So yeah, there we go. And then of course, when you're done, you can erase all your circles that you drew and your outline, right? Because the edges of this are gonna now create our contour, right? So we got a nice little bit here. And boom. What do you think of that? Pretty neat, eh? Yeah, all right, cool. That's Cadet. Cadent, sorry. And again, this can be used to fill any space. It's going to be probably one of my new favorites. I'm enjoying this definitely more than some of the basket weave patterns, but you could pick a spot. And if you have a grid journal like me, you can make those your circles, or you can make, you know, four of them your square. All right, and then my last one is the Huggins. I'll say this one is also kind of deceptively interesting. Oh, dogs! I'm so sorry. Okay, sorry about that. There was a ambulance outside my house, and my dogs were howling. All right, so I'm gonna use this as my shape here for my Zentangle. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create another grid of dots, but this one I don't need them to be circles. They're just gonna be dots. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of start. I'm gonna make these a little bigger than I made the last ones. But again, I'm going to try to keep them nice and in line. This pattern isn't difficult, really at all. It's just a weird one to explain. There, and then for consistency's sake, I'm going to do the same thing I did for the last one. The ones on the outside that I may need to draw in, I'm just going to go ahead and make a little pencil line for them. Okay, yeah, just made a little dot. Okay, now the way this works is I'm gonna do it one line at a time. I'm gonna do it one section at a time to kind of follow. I'm gonna pick an area right here, these four. This one I'm gonna make like a parentheses, like where it's like bracketing something, right, on the outside of both, right, and then kind of underneath it as a pattern, I'm going to go inside. So it's kind of outside, inside, outside, inside, outside. You kind of see that? And then, of course, this one will have to come up and that one will have to come up. Now, once I have my first one, right, it goes out, in, out, in, out, in. What I want to do is I want to move over to the next pair of lines, and I'm going to do the same thing. So this is outside, right? This is outside. This is inside. This is inside. This is outside. This is outside. Inside. Outside. So every kind of row of lines where it's like two lines, two lines, two lines, two lines, two lines, you repeat the same pattern. The same pattern gets repeated. So if I look at this little one right here, that's kind of by itself because its other pair is over here. This is also an outside, right? Yeah. So they're kind of mirrored. So if this is an outside, this is an outside. Okay. All right. Now, once I have that done, similar to what we just did in the cadent, I'm going to turn my card sideways, and I'm going to repeat the same pattern. All right. But what I'm going to do is where it's wide or tall this way, I have to make sure that it's short. So everything is going to make this little shape here, right? So I have this shape here, and then because the next one in the row, this is pretty short, I make this one wide, or inside, outside, inside, outside. So once I kind of find one, kind of keep going. All right. And then it's kind of the same through. So each of these areas, they're all the same shape. If you look at the shape of this and you look at the shape of this, it's the same shape. Again, it's not difficult. It can just be a little confusing. But hopefully visually it makes sense. Right. And there it is. Pretty interesting. The Huggins. Almost it's like a puzzle or something. It's pretty cool. This is like another one of those like weave techniques. Kind of like a basket woven object. So I shaded it similar to that. So I kind of imagine these as like ribbons that are like woven together. Just wherever these little wider pieces are, these like hammerhead shark heads, I added some value. I just put some on the edge and smeared it towards the center, right? Because that would be an area I'm assuming it would like go underneath the next thing. Try to be quick. It's kind of monotonous a little bit, the shading, but it does make it, as weird as that is. Like if you look at this little piece here, like the shading really does it. It's kind of was saying earlier about, well, I say all the time about details and kind of making sure you always take your time a little bit, because in the long run it really matters. Right, I think that's all of them. Right, so just adding a little value in, smearing it up, and then I always go back and add just a little touch of like extra dark. That way, you know, I've got some. It's not so tonal. There's some actual like shading there, some variation in my grays. Just going in a little bit. Really want this thing to pop, you know, and you can kind of see now, like the difference, like even between this and this, that little bit of gray, it really does it. It really does it. Like I said, I do mine in my journal in purple a lot. It's just like making sure I have that variety is really important. And you know, if you mess up doing this, it's okay. Just try to be a little more careful next time. And that's pretty cool, if I do say so myself, and I do. All right, guys. So you know, Huggins again. This is another one that you can add to your little library here. It's just a great pattern to know, because it's a little folky, but it's a really good one to fill a space. Um, yeah. So you know, when you move this over into your book, you know, you can use it anywhere to fill anything. All right, so these are our patterns today, guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.